Hi everyone. The Health Minister and I just want to update you on a new and emerging situation that we've just learnt about. There is a person who has probably or possibly been positive in the community in Western Australia in the last couple of weeks. This person is a FIFO worker. He was working at he flew to Cloudbreak, FMG's Cloudbreak mine on the 20th of July, and he was at the airport at the same time as the man came in from Queensland, you might recall a few weeks ago, who was a positive case. The man who came in from Queensland, you might recall, he had been through hotel quarantine, he'd been released from hotel quarantine, flew to Western Australia, then flew back, and at some point in time it emerged that he had potentially been positive whilst in the community. The FIFO worker was at the airport and flew up to the Cloudbreak mine for a week from the 20th to the 27th of July. We have he's recently been tested. The test results were very, very weak. He tested positive, then he tested negative. The suspicion is that he may well have been positive at some point in time whilst in the community. We don't know if he's infectious, because to further complicate matters, this person had been, the FIFO worker had been COVID positive back in March and April of last year. I think he might have been returning from overseas. So there's some confusion and some we don't know if he's actually what's called a shedder of the virus now, although that is unlikely. And we don't actually know that he acquired it from the gentleman at the airport on the 20th of July, but that is the most plausible explanation we currently have. He returned from Cloudbreak on the 27th of July. He has been, to the best of our knowledge, in the area of Greenwood and also in Fremantle over that period. What we are doing is compiling a list of potential sites where he has been, which we will publish as soon as we possibly can, and they'll go up on our WA Department of Health website as soon as we possibly can. We're scaling up our testing centres so that people who are feeling unwell or people who have been at any of the potential exposure sites can go and get themselves tested as soon as possible. If you have been at any of the exposure sites, the requirement is that you test and isolate until you return a negative result. So if you go and get tested, isolate until you return a negative result. In terms of the airport, he was at Terminals 3 and 4 on the 20th of July between 4 and 7 a.m. So 20 July, 4 and 7 a.m, which is obviously a long time ago. Terminals 3 and 4. He was back at the airport on the 27th of July between 4 and 6 a.m, Terminals 3 and 4. So if you're at the airport on any of those occasions, on those two occasions, between those times, in those terminals, go and get tested and isolate pending a positive result. When we find out exactly where he has been in Perth, in the time since the 27th of July, we'll publish those locations. If you've been at those locations, please go and get tested and isolate pending a positive result. The gentleman's, the FIFO worker's girlfriend has been tested and returned a negative result, which is great news. His three closest friends, workmates or some such, have been tested. One has returned a negative result, which is great news. The other two results are pending. If they are, or if you are a close contact, you're required to quarantine for 2 weeks. So that's the requirement on these people. So we're currently working as quickly as we can. The contact teams, tracing teams are working to find out exactly where he's been. We'll publish that, and we're just requesting the community do what they can to make sure that if you're unwell, get tested, or if you've been to the exposure sites, get tested and isolate. I'll hand over to the Health Minister to say a few words.
Thank you, Premier. Obviously, this is a concerning situation, and we're acting as quickly as possible to ensure that we minimise any risk to the WA public. There's a couple of points that need to bear reinforcing. One, this chap has been infected of either disease on a previous occasion. The suspicion is that if he did acquire the virus again, that there's a possibility he wasn't infectious at all. He was asymptomatic throughout his entire experience in relation to COVID-19 this time round. And as the Premier said, his partner has already produced a negative result. He has 3 very close contacts in relation to work. One of those has been tested and that person is also negative. So these are very encouraging results, but obviously we want to get the information to you as quickly as possible and make sure that people can take the appropriate course of action.
Was he vaccinated?
Look, we don't have those details, but there's a possibility that he considered himself to be immune anyway because he had already had the disease.
Is it correct that some of the exposure sites include the Subiaco Hotel on Saturday night and Kalgoorlie, and does that elevate concern that some close contacts have already travelled extensively?
Look, I'm not aware of the Kalgoorlie site, but yes, Subiaco Hotel, a hotel in Fremantle and in Greenwood. But the full range of exposure sites will be published on the Healthy WA website, and obviously we expect those number of sites to grow as our investigations continue.
Does that mean there's a potential large pool of contacts?
Look, there will be a large pool of casual contacts. The close contacts would include those people that he worked with, and obviously we have a group that we are calling very close contacts, who some of whom have already been tested. So we just need people to be vigilant and to make themselves aware of these sites. Obviously, we're also working very closely with FMG, who are well drilled in relation to looking after their personnel and their workforce, and we'll be providing them with extra support and equipment so that they can test any appropriate cohorts within their workforce.
Are all people on that mine site being treated as contacts that are there sometimes?
I don't know the full nature of the mine site, so you'll forgive me for not trying to second guess that, but one would assume that they'll all be treated as casual contacts, and in addition to that, those who we work directly with are considered close contacts.
And is that mine continuing to operate?
Yes, there's no reason why it shouldn't continue to operate, but we do need to FMG to enliven their protocols and test as many as appropriate.
How close are you to imposing interim restrictions in regard to this case?
Look, this is an unusual case. It's very unusual. The only reason why we're taking these steps is because he did return these weak positive results on across a number of platforms, and had that shared site with the positive case from Queensland. He is now negative, so this is an unusual case that we would bring these actions into play. But because he did have those weak positive results, and because he was at one of those exposure sites that the Queensland case was at, we think this is an appropriate course of action.
That Queensland traveller had tested, he returned to Queensland tested positive. What's the alpha strain? So any idea as to what the strain was?
No, and what's been explained to me is we're unlikely to get the genomic sequencing because his positive results were so weak, and now he's negative. It's unlikely that we'll be able to do genomic sequencing. But if the Queensland traveller is the reason why he became infectious again, became COVID positive again, we are encouraged by the fact that Queensland traveller wasn't able to pass on the disease even though he stayed at the backpackers.
Given the group said that potentially he wasn't very infectious and while out in the community, how can you rate the level of concern? Because your rumours have been spreading all day, there's already a little bit of panic out in the community. What assurance can you offer people that this may in fact not lead to a lockdown?
Well, look, there's no reason to believe that this will lead to a lockdown, but there is very much cause for concern. And as a result of that, we are asking all people who are at the airport on those particular dates, the 20th and the 27th, in those between 4 and 6, or 4 and 7, and those people who are at those exposure sites, which are on the Healthy WA website, to get themselves tested and to isolate until they return a negative result.
When do you expect the testing results of the 2 other close contacts that are pending?
One we're expecting very shortly. as in potentially later today. The others we are having to locate, or we've located them, but they're in remote locations. So we just have to obviously get their tests and their swabs together so we can run those tests.
Are they on a mine site now? Can they be rapid
I don't have that information. I just understand they're in more remote locations.
Do you know how many people?
There's 3 work close contacts and the girlfriend, obviously. We understand there's also a flatmate and his test is pending.
How many people are working on that?
I don't have the information off the top of my head, but obviously FMG will be putting out a statement this afternoon on the approach and matters that they're putting in place.
And what prompted this man to get tested? How was this recorded?
It was, and that's a really good question. It was a normal part of his the protocols at FMG, testing their crews as their workforce as they come onto a swing. So it's great to see once again the mining industry and resources industries playing such an important role in continuing to keep not only their industries ticking over, but also to keep the West Australian public safe.
If that mine site continues to operate, will there be widespread COVID testing of those staff now?
Yeah, we expect widespread testing on that mine site, and as I said, the Department of Health is assisting FMG with swabs and other equipment. They've got a good workforce, quasi-medical, paramedical workforce that can do the testing themselves, take the swabs. We're just assisting them where appropriate.
The flights he was on, were they just FIFO flights or other?
I'm assuming so, but I don't have that information.
Is he isolating at home?
Yes, he's at home. Thank you very much, everyone.
Sorry, obviously everyone getting contact tracing and tested, but is this perhaps also a final reminder to increase the urgency to get vaccinated?
Well, look, once again, we see a situation where despite all the efforts of the community and the government to make sure that we keep the virus out of Western Australia, it can sneak back in at a moment's notice. The best way that you can protect yourself, your family and the community is to get yourself vaccinated and make sure that you take the opportunity to book today. Thanks very much, everyone.
We'll, as we get further information, whether it's today or tomorrow, we'll keep the public informed. But it's obviously a timely reminder that COVID is out there, and West Australians, please go and get vaccinated as soon as you can. It's the key to making yourself safe and your family safe. Obviously, this has been it's a highly unusual situation, just so you know. He had COVID last year. He actually was positive for COVID last year, got better. He just happened to be at the airport on the same day as this fellow came from Queensland that we're aware of a few weeks ago. The best explanation we have for his weak positive test result is he probably acquired it from the man at the airport through some sort of casual contact, which we haven't nailed down as yet.
When did FMG find out about it?
Look, we found out about it today. I think there was some testing going on yesterday, but there was positive tests and negative tests. So trying to nail all that down, I think, is quite tricky when there's these very very, very low readings. But that's why we think he was positive over the course of the last 16 days. At what point in time he was positive, we're not sure. And there's also a strong prospect he wasn't actually infectious because he was COVID positive early last year, which apparently is a condition. You can actually have had COVID, and then when you get it again, you're not actually infectious. So that's a strong possibility. I certainly hope that's true. Thank you.
Thanks very much.